Lurking in the gloomy depths of a Scottish lake is a legend of mythic proportions: the Loch Ness Monster. Despite today's sophisticated surveillance and thousands of sightings over the centuries, it continues to escape detection. Now, scientists are honing in on the real dragons that haunted the deep 100 million years ago. In Scottish folklore, an evil spirit dwells in Loch Ness that lures unwary travelers to their graves. Scotland's St. Columba saw it 1,500 years ago and crossed himself for protection. Since then, 10,000 sightings have been reported. Paleontologist Mike Benton of Bristol University in England has taken time out to look into the story of the mysterious beast that lurks in the lake.
For centuries, mariners have reported giant creatures that would come from the depths and would seize their ships, plucking mariners from the decks and crushing the boat and pulling it under the waves. Well, last century, a giant squid was pulled from the Pacific with tentacles 70 feet long, so that at least was one sea monster that turned out to be real.
It's not surprising that a lake, hemmed in by brooding hills, worn smooth by ancient glaciers, should produce such a haunting legend. Laden with peat, its murky water makes underwater sightings virtually impossible. 24 miles long, 1 mile wide, Loch Ness is one of the deepest lakes in the world, ideal for a monster in hiding. 150 million years ago, the Jurassic was a time of giants. On land, dinosaurs 60 feet tall were coming into their own. Pterosaurs ruled the air. And in the sea, colossal reptiles, among them 3 heavyweight contenders for the Loch Ness Monster.
First of all, there were the ichthyosaurs. These were dolphin-like animals which could swim very fast, and they fed on a variety of fishes and squid. Secondly, there were the mosasaurs. These were overgrown lizards with strangely hinged jaws that could grapple with their prey, and some of the mosasaurs were very large, as much as 40 feet in length. There were the plesiosaurs. That's the most popular candidate for the Loch Ness Monster, with its long neck and long tail, and some of those could be truly gigantic as well.
These fantastic creatures did exist. Could one of them have pulled off the great escape from Jurassic Park? Two centuries ago, these bleak and treacherous cliffs at Lyme Regis on the southern coast of England loomed over a vast prehistoric world yet to be discovered. No one dreamed sea monsters could be real. But one day in 1810, young Mary Anning was scouring the beach, looking for fossil shells to sell to support her widowed mother. Although she had no formal training, 12-year-old Mary knew enough to recognize the unusual bones protruding from the cliff. They belonged to the first complete skeleton of an ichthyosaur ever found. no one appreciates the significance of the discovery more than paleontologist Hugh Torrens.
It's nice to be following in Mary Anning's footsteps. I've been coming here for 30 years, and I'm reminded on a day like this of how extraordinarily dangerous it is. You look at the cliffs, see how fragile and delicate they are, and you are, I think, struck that a young girl was doing this and developing this extraordinary reputation as one of the founding figures of the study of fossils.
Her discovery made young Mary famous, and the fossils she found here were sold for large sums of money. She learned rapidly that the different limestone layers exposed by the slumping of the weak black clays contained fossils from different time periods.
She found a whole series of discoveries, and I suppose the most famous is the one that she made when she was a child. This is the first ichthyosaur to come to scientific attention, which caused a storm in London because it was such an unknown and unexpected animal.
The ichthyosaur, which means fish lizard, had a long pointed snout with sharp cutting teeth, unusually large eyes, and a body shape superbly equipped for rapid movement through the water, much like modern dolphins. Theirs was an award-winning design. They survived in seas around the world for over 150 million years.
They were beautifully streamlined, fast-swimming animals. Like dolphins, they also had to come up to breathe from time to time. I'm surprised I haven't seen one yet.
Scotland is not the only country haunted by a legendary sea dragon. Canada's most famous monster, Ogopogo, lives in Okanagan Lake, a deep finger lake in British Columbia. And the director of the Department of Fisheries for Quebec also officially announced that a strange, large animal is living in Lake Pohenegamook, the Indian word for monster. Could a few scattered ichthyosaurs be hiding out in North America? 200 million years ago, water covered much of present-day Nevada. Today, 3 hours from Reno, is Ichthyosaur State Park. Jennifer Hogler is the resident paleontologist. The main feature of the park is a collection of fossils so large it can't be moved and is protected by a building known as the Ark.
The most remarkable sight of all is right here. There are 9 or 10 animals packed very tightly together here, kind of like giant sardines in a really big can. This is a mass grave of ichthyosaurs.
How these creatures died and why so many were huddled together in one place remains a mystery. One theory is they beached themselves like whales. They simply got too close to the shore, got stuck, and died.
The problem with this theory is that these simply aren't beach sediments. The water here was at least 100 or more feet deep, well off the edge of the continental shelf.
They could have congregated at a rich food source, but there are other possibilities.
The most recent idea is that the ichthyosaurs used this area as a breeding ground. Again, just like modern animals, they would occasionally gather in large numbers to breed and to give birth.
Fossil evidence reveals that ichthyosaurs gave birth to live young, tail first like modern dolphins, to prevent them from drowning. A remarkable fossil in the Natural History Museum in London captures an ichthyosaur being born. The stress of the birth must have killed both mother and baby. Together, they drifted to the bottom to be frozen in time.
Perhaps the wildest theory of all is based on an ancient Indian legend that says there used to be really, really big fish swimming in ancient Lake Lahontan off to the west of here. And then one day there was a great cataclysm in which the mountains roared, the earth shook, and the sky turned black. and after that, the big fish were seen no more. The theory is that those big fish were actually ichthyosaurs, still alive just 4,000 years ago. And the cataclysm was the impact of a large meteorite that landed in the lake and splashed the broken bodies of these ichthyosaurs 100 miles to where they landed here on the hillside where we find them today.
The largest ichthyosaur found in the park was 56 feet long, and this is a pretty good representation of what it looked like. 19th century artists envisioned ichthyosaurs gulping prey in a sea filled with bizarre creatures. Their huge jaws and lethal-looking teeth made ichthyosaur look like a killer dolphin from hell. But feeding underwater poses special problems. On land, a predator can bite its prey, brace itself against the ground, then pull its victim down using the force of gravity.
Eating flesh underwater can be a big problem because your prey simply floats away. Ichthyosaurs had one solution. They would open their mouths very rapidly, and that would create a vacuum and suck the fish in. If you're eating bigger prey, as sharks do today, you have to sink your teeth in and twist to tear chunks of flesh off, sometimes turning the body like a great corkscrew. Sometimes there would be a great tussle between the predator and the prey, and during the battle some of the sea monsters broke their collarbones and they healed up again during life.
Are these Jurassic killers still prowling Loch Ness? If so, these Scottish waters may be the most dangerous place in the world to go fishing. It was dusk on a summer's evening in 1934 when a local chauffeur, Alfred Cruikshank, was driving along the hazardous north bank of Loch Ness. As he crested a small hill, his headlights picked out a large animal crossing the road ahead. Later, he reported seeing a large humped body, standing 4 feet high, with its belly trailing on the ground. He thought it was about 25 feet long. It waddled away from the road on 2 legs on each side. Its head, he said, was close to its body, with very little neck.
Well, is this just another tall tale, or did Cruikshank see something real? Were there really 25-foot-long sea monsters? 200 years ago, a large skull was found in a quarry in Holland, and it caused quite a stir.
This fossil of a monster called mosasaur was so famous that at the Battle of Maastricht in 1795, Napoleon was ordered to deliver it to Paris, to Baron Georges Cuvier, the leading paleontologist of the day. The battles at sea rivaled the battles on land among paleontologists and philosophers. In the 18th century, the prevailing view was that the Earth was only a few thousand years old, and the concept of extinction didn't exist. Cuvier showed that millions of years ago, giant reptiles roamed the seas, then vanished. Their fossils proved they once existed. In a warehouse in North Dakota, Mike Trebold is assembling a monster mosasaur. Rescued from a museum basement after more than 100 years, he put it together in double quick time, especially for this film. It's the largest mosasaur ever found.
There's the 10-foot mark right there. Okay, there's the 22-foot mark.
31 feet.
45 feet, 3 inches.
Even Mike Trebold is impressed.
From the tip of the snout to the back of the rear jaw, 6 feet 3 inches. And each of the teeth are about 3 inches long. Well, I wouldn't make much more than a quick snack to one of these.
One of the world authorities on mosasaurs is Gordon Bell of the South Dakota School of Mines.
The tail of the mosasaur was the main propulsive organ. It was moved from side to side like a modern eel swims, and that gave it a great deal of thrust and power, which made it an excellent ambush predator. The limbs are used mainly for steering. The front limbs especially were used for steering right or left, up or down, while the hind limbs were used to bring the body into line to control pitch and yaw, much like a modern airplane. The lower jaw has a joint right in the middle, and at the back there is a rotating hinge. In the front there is a very loose tendinal connection, and this allows the lower jaw to flex inwards and backwards, and that would force the food right down the animal's throat.
The mosasaur is an ancestor of the Komodo dragon. It's believed they crawled onto the land to lay their eggs, but like sea turtles, their paddles would not have been able to lift their massive bodies off the ground.
However big and fierce the adult mosasaurs were, the young would have been very small and defenseless. So perhaps the mother mosasaur would have crept into a small, secluded bay just like this to lay her eggs.
If a mosasaur could waddle on land, it could have been the creature that Alfred Cruikshank thought he saw in 1934. But another contender, with a long neck, would become the most famous Loch Ness monster of them all. On the afternoon of June the 1st, 1994, Fiona Mackay and her friend Errol David were driving along the lake when they thought they saw something. They raced off to try to get a closer look. It had a long neck and was moving swiftly in the water. They followed it for about 100 yards when suddenly it dove, they said, with such a splash and disturbance that they had to jump back to stop from being soaked. That night, others also saw it. A long neck is the most common feature reported. The description fits another Jurassic sea dragon, Plesiosaurus, also first uncovered in the limestone cliffs at Lyme Regis. Mary Anning was 25 years old when she made her second important discovery. It was on a bitter December morning in 1823, after winter storms had battered the coast, that Mary went out as usual, blind to the dangers of these treacherous cliffs. There, she found a complete skeleton of the animal that would make her famous.
Her achievements as an adult were even more extraordinary than her childish achievements, in my opinion. The most extraordinary in the world of science was her discovery of the world's first complete plesiosaur, this wonderful marine reptile with an enormously long neck. And it was such an extraordinary discovery that drawings were sent of it that she had made to Paris, where the world's expertise existed, and the Parisian experts said this was a forgery. They suspected that these collectors were forging fossils, corrupting the scientific record. And when an ordinary working-class girl was shown to be correct and the world's leading scientist was shown to be wrong, that gave her a credibility which she never lost. And nobody ever after, in the remaining 24 years of her life, checked or questioned her finds. She was an enormously authoritative figure.
Like St. George, Mary Anning had slain the mythical dragon. Now she too would enter the realm of legend and become known as St. Georgina of Lyme Regis for her discoveries proving the existence of ancient reptiles. Her plesiosaur once swam the oceans, growing to a length of over 40 feet. Jim Martin, head paleontologist at South Dakota School of Mines, has studied how they move through the water.
This is the front paddle of this long-necked plesiosaur. You can see that it's quite narrow, yet relatively long. This particular paddle was used to sort of fly through the water, flying in a way much that penguins do. Certainly not as fast. This animal was much slower in the water than penguins, and really was much more of an ambusher than a speed demon to go out and catch its prey.
One curious feature of plesiosaurs, they swallowed stones.
Over 250 of these stones were found in the stomach of this giant plesiosaur. The stones were probably used for a number of purposes. One for ballast, to keep this plesiosaur upright while it's swimming, and the other for processing food by grinding it up.
Its long neck was also peculiar. Any movement of its head and the animal would veer off course. But it also had the advantage that its head could encounter a school of small prey before its body was detected. Ambush by stealth meant no creature was safe from a surprise attack. Plesiosaurs had no sense of smell, but like sharks, they could taste the slightest quantity of blood in the water. Its two nostrils acted like stereoscopic vision, giving the animal a precise readout of the location of its prey. An organ behind its nostrils then locked onto the position. It also told the animal how fast it was going while in pursuit, and two other organs in its head controlled pitch and yaw. Plesiosaurs were superbly suited for the primordial sea. Stranger and more terrifying than any creature in legend, they flourished for over 100 million years. Could an ancient sea monster still be alive?